today would recognize the federal government as something that they intended for it to be. It is so out of control, and it is way beyond the time for us to take control back of those who would serve government and start serving the people and following the Constitution. Absolutely, it needs to be reduced.
The purpose of government is to defend individual rights and to facilitate the free exercise thereof. Our particular federal government was put together with the world's first Constitution, limiting the rights of government and clearly defining them. We were the world's first. If we will simply limit ourselves to the items that are specified that we should do in this wonderfully inspired document, we will have a limited and reduced size of government, and it'll operate far more efficiently than it does now. Thank you.
Absolutely, it should be rolled back, and my plan of 10-3 lean will do exactly that. 10% per year for 3 consecutive years, 27% rollback of the federal government and taxes. We will begin to recapture our country under the plan that I'm espousing.
Government should be smaller. The proper role of the federal government is most eloquently laid out in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that governments are instituted among men to secure these rights. That's the primary job of the federal government, to secure our rights, not trample them in the name of social progressivism with one expensive program after another. We should protect the right to life. I believe in that. That's why I've been endorsed by Dan Kennedy, president of Washington Human Life. We need a constitutional amendment to protect human life.
Now for 30 seconds, Skip Mercer, should the power of the Federal Reserve be increased or reduced, and why?
The Federal Reserve and Freddie Mac as well, they are actually government-sponsored enterprises. They're odd entities. They are part private and they're part government. But they definitely, the Fed should be audited. And in addition, we should know clearly what they're up to. They should not be affected or controlled by politicians, which did happen during the housing bubble. That's why the low interest rates were there, because the Fed was going along with the government. We need to get rid of that.
Federal Reserve needs to be audited, and as soon as we're done auditing them, we need to get rid of them. We need to get back on the gold standard. The housing and market crash and the bankruptcies were due to an unholy alliance between our Federal Reserve and our government of today, the federal banking system and our government of today.
What worries me about the Federal Reserve is that it operates largely outside of the Constitution. Let me put it this way. Congress has more oversight over the post office and mail delivery than it does the Federal Reserve System. Now, how in the world can you have more oversight over mail delivery than we do over our entire national monetary system? That's crazy. You can trust me to be a more vigilant member of Congress and to hold the Federal Reserve accountable. No doubt about it.
As has been mentioned, there is nothing federal about the Federal Reserve. It is a private corporation. As such, it should not have such control over our economy that it maintains. During this last crisis, it's issued over $3.8 trillion through its discount window. We have no idea where it went. And Ben Bernanke said he resorted to something called quantitative easing to help our crisis. That's nothing but creating money from thin air and making a digital notation in somebody's account. And you don't even have the right to know who he did it for. We must reduce its powers.
We must reduce its power, but the question is how? How is electing people who are constitutionalists, who believe in the sovereignty of this country, and who will stand up and do the right thing consistently. But we must find those leaders. They are few and far between, but they are out there. And this is the only way we'll ever solve this problem, when we get leaders with a spine who will stand up and consistently do the right thing.
Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution says that Congress shall have the authority to coin money and regulate the value thereof. That is the central duty of the Congress, and it has passed the buck, pardon the pun, to the Federal Reserve. Congress must stand up and take that authority back and do the job. It needs to audit the Fed, and the Fed needs to go away as it currently exists.
Yes, I also, too, believe it should be reduced. And I think we should pull the curtain back and expose the wizards and take care of business.
Now back to another short one in 10 seconds. Clint Didier, is the federal government overreaching its constitutional limits?
Absolutely. And we, the people, are going to rein them back in.
Well, I think you all know what I'm going to say here. At least I hope you do. But in case you just walked into the room, yes, absolutely, the federal government is too big, and it's gone way beyond its constitutional limits. We've got to rein it in.
It's clear that it has reached very far and defined things in a way that means that there is no exceptions to their rules. They believe they can regulate anything for any reason.
But again, the question is, why do they overreach? Because they don't have faith in you. We need leaders who believe in the American people that you have the capacity to chart your course better than anyone else. And when we get those leaders, we will solve this problem.
Yes, the federal government is definitely overreaching its power. Obamacare is the best recent example, forcing you to buy something you don't want or can't afford, price fixing, telling the insurance companies to limit their costs. That's wrong.
I also believe they're overreaching, and I'll just leave it at that.
The answer to the question is not just yes, it's hell yes.
Now looking for a 30-second response, starting with Don Benton, to what's wrong, if anything, with the Patriot Act?
There's a lot of things wrong with the Patriot Act. First and foremost, it's an attack on our personal liberties. There was actually an attempt, many of you may not realize, in the state legislature to pass a Washington State version of the Patriot Act that was introduced by the governor. And I opposed this state version of the Patriot Act because it encroached on our fundamental rights. I was even able to work with Democrats to stop the bill and kill the bill in the state legislature.
The fundamental problem with the Patriot Act, as has been in many countries where they promise you security if you'll just give up your liberty, is that you can never achieve that goal. The things that made America great and safe is the very liberty that we possess, and we must keep it in order to stay strong, not give it up.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Definitely the cornerstone is liberty, and we give it up when we allow people to intrude into our life, and this is not a good thing, and we definitely need to preserve that if we want to be fundamentally the country that we have been the last 200 years.
I'm less concerned about the individual act than I am the big picture. The big picture is the federal government does have a duty to defend the United States and its people, and I think it's really failed. And I think we need to do a much better job of both preserving our citizens' rights and privacy under the Constitution as well as defending America, and we need to do a better job on both fronts.
The Patriot Act is an affront to our liberties and should therefore go away.
I believe the problem is a little bit more complicated. It's been a while since 9/11, but we are a nation at war, and there are terrorists coming, and I'm afraid that it may be a necessary evil, at least to some extent. It's true. It's a violation of our rights and our privileges. That's what happens in war. And we've done fairly well at catching the bad guys in the last few years, much better than people realize, because the press